Taika Waititi has done it again with his recent comedy adventure, Thor Love and Thunder. I'm Antonio Ache, and this is Comic Romance. As you should have gathered from the intro, this video is about the latest Thor movie, which was released on July 7th of this year. We're going to quickly discuss some of the major beats and comic nods from this movie, so obviously, here would be your spoiler warning. This hilarious movie starts off with a grim intro of Gorr, who is shown emaciated and clearly dehydrated, praying in vain for his god's help. And in a nice bit of humanization, we hear him not pleading for himself, but just for the god to have mercy on his child. Sadly, no one answers, and his daughter dies. He's then shown having buried his kid, and while he's mourning, he stumbles across a lush oasis created by the god he was praying to, who's celebrating having taken out the previous user of the Necrosword. He gets angry with the god's clear apathy for his people and renounces him. In a scene all too similar to Loki's end at Thanos' hand, the god he once praised tries to end him. The Necrosword then accios itself over to him, and he uses it to relieve the god of his head, beginning the rampage that garners him the moniker, the God Butcher. Speaking of heads though, fans of the latest God of War game will have noticed how Korg, who spends a good portion of this movie retelling the tales of the gods, somewhat mirrors Mimir in that right and in the fact that he is reduced to being a talking head at some point in the journey. When we first meet Jane Foster in this movie, she's going through chemo to stave off her stage 4 cancer, all the while showing a fan a simplified version of the Einstein-Rosen bridge theory, like Mr. Clark did in season 1 of Stranger Things. We find out that for the last 6 months, she's been looking for all sorts of cures for her diagnosis, and when our girl Darcy drops a hint that she should try reaching out to Thor, she begins hearing Mjolnir beckon her. This bit is wonderfully adapted from the comics, where she also had cancer and found a momentary cure in Mjolnir's magic. Before Jane finds her way to resurrecting the remains of Mjolnir, we're treated to the return of Matt Damon and Luke Hemsworth as Loki and Thor respectively. But this time, they're reenacting the death of Odin and the rise of Hela, played enthusiastically by Melissa McCarthy. Thor and the Guardians help out on one of the planets thrown into disarray by Gorr's path of destruction, and even though Thor shattered their whole shrine while trying to save them, the people of the planet show their gratitude by gifting Thor with 2 of the most hilarious running gags of the movie. After parting from the Guardians, Thor and Korg find and save Lady Sif and bring her back to New Asgard. Turns out, however, that Gorr was using her as bait to draw Thor out as he attempts to attack him while he's there. During this attack, Gorr is bested by the duo of Thors and King Valkyrie, but he's not out of ideas yet, as he uses his Shadow Beast to Pied Piper the children of New Asgard so he can lure Thor to the Shadow Realm, where he's strong enough to overpower him. Realizing that he'd be harder to beat on his home turf, they decide to request an army from Zeus and the other gods in Omnipotent City, which is a real place in the comics, by the way. I don't know about you all, but I got hyped when Thor started name-dropping the Egyptian, Aztec, and Greek gods, Ra, Quetzalcoatl, and Hercules respectively. Sadly, we didn't get more than a glimpse of any of them. Similarly disappointing, when they get to their destination, Zeus and the other gods are more interested in where the next godly romp is going to be held, rather than helping to stop Gorr before he can hurt anyone else. After the infamous flick scene where Thor's Loki tat and the Thunder Cheeks are revealed, the team rallies to steal Zeus's weapon since he won't help them at all. I will say, it was rather smart of them to get around that PG-13 rating by changing the blood color of anyone who got slashed or exploded. Really genius way to show stuff happening without showing stuff happening. So at that point, they commandeer Thunderbolt and head off to fight Gorr and get the kids back, and so on and so on. But obviously I'm not here to just retell every bit of the movie, because I'm assuming you've seen it. If you haven't, thanks for watching the video anyway. What I will do now is talk about what you probably missed or didn't know as like the average viewer. Okay, I lied. Before that, there's one plot hole that I just couldn't ignore. The only reason that Gorr ends up getting to access the Bifrost is that Thor decided to use Stormbreaker to get away from the Shadow Realm. Problem is, Thor obviously knows that Thunderbolt could have transported them because he uses it to teleport later without needing to be told to do so. So why didn't he just use Thunderbolt instead of using Stormbreaker?
Unclear.
Plot reasons apparently, but I digress. In the background of the scene at Omnipotent City, 2 Celestials can be seen peering in through the large windows. Celestials, for those who don't remember, are the massive god-level beings who the Eternals were working for and then trying to stop in their own movie. Next, the daughter that Gorr talked to Shinron about comes back with powers, and for a second, her reflection is similar to Eternity. The average viewer will probably assume that this is a visual effect because Eternity brought her back, but comic fans of the series A-Force will make the connection that Gorr's daughter is probably our MCU version of the hero Singularity, who similarly appears in the shape of a girl but with a galactic filter applied. So that's another young hero introduced into the MCU, and if you're counting, that's like 8 now. Lastly, the post-credit scenes. They set up the Hercules Revenge tour and the likely return of Jane Foster as a Valkyrie. Altogether, this is a great movie, a fun romp that brought comic stories to the big screen with just enough of a difference for fans of the source material to still enjoy it. If you like this movie or this review, give this video a like. If you noticed anything big that we missed, or if you just want to, I don't know, promote fan fiction for the god of teddy bears, leave us a comment below. So until the next time when we discuss the next nerdy release, I've been Antonio Ache, and this has been Comrom, where we do nerdy reviews with the occasional boost.